My name is Claire Atwood. I am 36 years old, a dermatologist based in Austin, Texas. And for most of my adult life, I believed that I had done everything right. I built my career from the ground up, earned respect in a field I cared deeply about, and kept my family close through all of life's noise. I thought I was safe, that I had carved out a life grounded in trust, love, and loyalty. I was engaged to Daniel Scott. He was 38, calm, thoughtful, and dependable in the ways that made you believe he would never lie. We met 4 years ago at a medical fundraiser. He handled financial portfolios for hospitals, and I remember how his confidence put me at ease right away. He made plans. He remembered details. He had this ability to make you feel like you were the only person in the room. We moved in together a year after we met. My mother adored him. My colleagues teased me about finally settling down. And honestly, I felt lucky. Daniel was solid, a man who folded laundry without being asked and sent flowers on random Tuesdays. But the person who seemed to love him almost as much as I did was my younger sister, Rachel. Rachel Atwood, 29, the bright light in any room she entered. She was funny, spontaneous, and worked in content creation for lifestyle brands. People described her as magnetic, but to me, she was always just my baby sister, the one who stole my clothes and my shampoo, the one who cried into my shoulder during every heartbreak, the one I would have defended to the ends of the earth. She used to joke that she would never find a man like Daniel. She said we were couple goals. She said I was lucky. And I believed her. When I got engaged, Rachel was the first person I told. She screamed so loud over the phone I had to pull it away from my ear. We planned the wedding together. She helped me pick the flowers, choose my dress, and taste the cake samples. She was going to be one of my bridesmaids. My maid of chaos, she liked to call it. I trusted her with everything. I never thought to look over my shoulder. I never thought I needed to. And yet the night before my wedding, I learned that the man I loved and the sister I adored had been lying to me, together. It wasn't just a mistake. It was betrayal with a smile. And what I did the next day at the altar is something none of them saw coming, not even her. Daniel and I met on a late spring evening at a hospital charity auction. I had just come off a 12-hour shift at the clinic and wasn't planning to stay long. But my assistant had begged me to attend, said it would be good for networking, good for visibility. So I went. And that was the night I met the man I thought would be my husband. He was standing at the bar talking to one of the sponsors. Tall, well-dressed, with a quiet confidence that drew people to him. When we were introduced, he shook my hand and said, "You look like someone who doesn't want to be here." I laughed and told him he wasn't wrong. We spent most of the night talking, not flirting. Talking about careers, about family, about what makes people stay in one place when the world keeps pulling them in every direction. I told him I was tired of men who wanted to compete with me. He said he admired women who knew what they wanted. There was no pressure, no agenda, just something honest between us. 3 days later, he called me. Not a text, not a message, an actual phone call. He asked if he could take me to dinner, and I said yes. From there, it unfolded slowly. He wasn't pushy, he wasn't overly romantic. He was intentional, thoughtful. We took our time. After a year, he moved into my house. After 2, he brought up the idea of marriage. And by year 4, he proposed. It wasn't some dramatic public affair. It was just the 2 of us at home. He cooked dinner, chicken piccata, and red wine, and pulled a small box out of the silverware drawer when I wasn't looking. It was simple and quiet and beautiful. Of course, I said yes. Everyone was thrilled. My friends, my coworkers, and most of all, my family. Especially Rachel. She was the kind of person who made everything feel like a celebration. When I called to tell her the news, she cried. Said she always knew he was the one. Said she had been hoping for this since the day she met him. And honestly, I believed her. She and Daniel got along naturally. That never felt strange to me. Rachel got along with everyone. That was her gift. People loved her. She was spontaneous and fun, always planning trips or suggesting last-minute brunches. She had a way of making you feel like life was lighter around her. Growing up, we were close. I was the older one, more serious, more focused. She was the free spirit, the one who jumped into lakes without checking the depth, the one who dyed her hair pink at 16 and wore it like a crown. We fought like all sisters do, but she was mine, my constant. Even after college, when we lived in different cities, we called each other often. We exchanged playlists and late-night voice messages. We sent each other books we thought the other would love. She knew everything about me, what stressed me out, what made me cry, what I looked for in a man. And she loved Daniel. She said it all the time. "I love how he treats you. He's exactly what you need. He gets you." It never once crossed my mind that any of those statements had another layer underneath them. Not until much, much later. As the wedding approached, Rachel became more involved. She offered to help with everything from floral samples to tasting appointments. She made Pinterest boards. She texted me daily about bride vibes and dress options. She told me this would be the most magical weekend of my life. Our ceremony was set to take place at a private estate on Lake Travis. It had this timeless rustic charm, stone archways, long wooden pews, ivy climbing the walls, and a wide open view of the water. We had 120 guests, most of them close family and lifelong friends. It was the kind of wedding you dreamed about in childhood, except I wasn't a child anymore. I had worked hard for everything: the home, the business, the career, the love. Rachel helped plan nearly every part of it. And if she was tired or distant at times, I assumed she was just overwhelmed. If she showed up to a cake tasting late or skipped a dress fitting because of a collab deadline, I gave her grace. She was my sister. I would have forgiven anything. A week before the wedding, Daniel and I wrote letters to each other. We planned to exchange them the morning of the ceremony. His letter was short but emotional. He told me how lucky he felt to have found someone so steady, so loyal, so different from anyone else he'd ever known. I reread that letter the night before the wedding. It felt like a promise. Rachel stayed in the guest house on the property that weekend. She said she wanted to give me space in the main house to focus. "You deserve quiet," she told me. "I'll handle whatever you need." The night before the wedding, she and Daniel were both gone longer than I expected. I figured they were handling some last-minute rehearsal details, maybe checking on the seating plan. The coordinator had called in sick, so things had gotten a little chaotic. When I asked where they had gone, Daniel told me they had stopped at the bakery to fix a cake error. "Just being good teammates," he said with a smile. And again, I believed him, because why wouldn't I? I didn't see the truth then, not until the message popped up on the screen, and everything I believed about them unraveled in seconds. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't nerves, not really. It was more of a restless excitement, the kind that makes your chest feel too full. I kept thinking about the next day, about the walk down the aisle, about the look on Daniel's face when he would see me in my dress. I imagined the vows, the first dance, the clinking of glasses under the soft hum of string lights. I got out of bed and made tea, hoping it would help. I sat near the window of the bridal suite in the main house, watching the moonlight reflect off the lake. It was nearly midnight when I remembered I still hadn't finalized the seating chart for the brunch the morning after the wedding. Rachel had offered to handle it, but she never sent me the final version. I didn't want to wake her, so I figured I'd just pull it from her shared iCloud folder. We had used the same Apple ID years ago, back when she had borrowed my old iPad to travel. Apparently, the devices had never fully disconnected. I pulled out the iPad from my bag, the one I used for checking designs and event plans. When it powered on, it automatically synced with old files from Rachel's account. There it was, her Notes app still linked, and in it a note titled "Weekend List, Must Pack." I almost didn't open it, but I did. Inside was a list of items: lace set, black dress, Daniel's favorite aftershave, Plan B, USB backup. My stomach turned. At first I told myself it wasn't what it looked like, that I was reading too much into it, that maybe she had a boyfriend I didn't know about. Maybe Daniel had asked her to pick something up. My brain scrambled to create any version of reality that didn't include the thing I knew deep down I was already beginning to suspect. Then a message popped up, an iMessage preview. It slid down from the top of the screen like a curtain being drawn. From Daniel Scott. Time 11:47 p.m. Message: "Tonight felt like a dream. I can still feel your hair on my chest. You taste like regret, but I want more. After tomorrow, everything changes. Promise me one last time." Attached. One photo. Dim lighting. A bed I recognized the guest house bedroom. My hand dropped the iPad. The ceramic mug of tea slipped from my lap and shattered on the wooden floor. I sat frozen. The photo was blurry, but unmistakable. Rachel's gold bracelet. Daniel's hand. A pillow from the bed I had helped her set up with fresh linens. They were together. That night. While I sat in the room where I was supposed to become someone's wife. I picked up the iPad and opened the message thread fully. What I found was not a single mistake. It was a thread of destruction. Weeks, months, conversations layered with secrecy and lust and guilt poorly disguised as love. She'll never find out. It's wrong, but it feels right. She doesn't see you like I do. They had been carrying this behind my back like a shared secret, laughing at dinners, hugging at rehearsals, toasting with champagne, and speaking about loyalty, commitment forever. I couldn't breathe. My hands went cold, my face flushed with heat. I felt the sting behind my eyes, but no tears came. I wasn't crying. I was waking up, and what I saw in that moment, what hit me harder than the betrayal itself, was how calm I felt. There was no screaming, no throwing things, no panic, just silence. And then something sharper. Clarity. I thought about everything Rachel had said to me over the past few months. All the compliments, all the efforts to help, the little moments that didn't make sense at the time, how she seemed nervous when I walked into the room, how Daniel avoided my eyes when I mentioned her name, how they both insisted on handling the details whenever I offered to step in. I saw it all now. I had ignored the signs because I believed too much in people I loved. That's what betrayal is, I think. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from the place you never thought to doubt. I sat there for over an hour, reading, watching, absorbing, letting it sink deep into my bones. Then I made a choice. I wasn't going to cancel the wedding. I wasn't going to scream at them in the middle of the night or burst into their room demanding answers. I was going to give them exactly what they wanted. I was going to let the show go on, the white dress, the flowers, the music. I would stand beside them both. I would walk the aisle. And then when everyone was watching, when they thought they had gotten away with it, when they smiled and said, "I do," I would give them something they would never forget. The truth. I backed up the messages, saved the photos. I sent the entire thread to my personal cloud. Then I called my college friend Marissa, a video editor and digital storyteller, who owed me more than one favor. She answered on the second ring. "I need your help," I said. "Tonight, no questions," she replied. "I'm on my way." Before sunrise, we had everything we needed. The screenshots, the voice memos, a clean, polished video just under 3 minutes, set to soft piano music. The title before you say, "I do a wedding gift from Claire." The truth wrapped like a ribbon, and I would hand it to them in front of everyone they cared about. Because some stories don't need revenge, they just need an audience. The morning of my wedding, I woke up before the sun. The sky outside was soft and gray, like it didn't yet know what kind of day it was going to be. I stood in front of the mirror and studied my face. There was a strange stillness in me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was ready. By the time the makeup artist arrived, I had already gone through every step of my plan in my head twice. Marissa had emailed the final cut of the video at 4 a.m. I watched it alone in silence before getting dressed. I didn't cry. I just nodded as if confirming that everything I needed to say was already in there. The video opened with photos. Rachel and Daniel laughing in a booth at a diner, a mirror selfie in the gym, messages layered across the screen. "I miss you," one more time. She doesn't need to know. Soft piano music played in the background. Nothing dramatic, no editing tricks. Just truth presented plainly. I had created something that didn't scream. It whispered, but it would be louder than anything they ever expected. I printed small cards, elegant ones, matching the wedding stationery. On the front was a gold-trimmed message, "To our guests, we have prepared a special video to celebrate love, honesty, and beginnings. Please scan this code before the ceremony begins." No one would question it. These days, couples put QR codes on everything for gift registries, for playlists, for thank you messages. Mine would just look like another charming touch. I handed the stack to the venue coordinator, who was told to leave one card at each seat. She smiled and said, "You're the calmest bride I've ever worked with." I smiled back. Calm can be a weapon, too. Rachel arrived around 10. She wore a champagne-colored satin dress and carried a coffee in one hand, her phone in the other. She walked in like nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek. "Big day, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah. You ready?" She laughed. "Please. I was born ready." Daniel came in next, flanked by his groomsmen. His suit was perfectly tailored, his hair neatly styled. He looked like a man about to get everything he wanted. He walked over to me with a soft grin. "You're glowing," he said. "Thanks," I replied. "Must be the light." He didn't suspect a thing. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 p.m. outdoors by the lake. White chairs lined the aisle, flower petals scattered along the path. A quartet played gentle classical music while guests took their seats. I stayed in the bridal suite waiting for the moment to come. At 2:30, I watched through the curtain as people began scanning the cards. It started small, a murmur, then a gasp, a hand to the mouth. A whisper passed from one row to another. Phones lit up. Screens turned toward neighbors. Shock moved like a wave across the crowd. One woman stood and looked toward the back of the tent. Another turned to her husband with wide eyes. My college roommate put her hand on her chest. I watched it unfold like a choreographed dance. Every reaction landed exactly where it needed to. Rachel was busy taking selfies with the bridesmaids. Daniel was talking to the officiant. Neither of them had any idea. I stepped out at exactly 2:58. The music shifted to the bridal processional. People turned to see me, some smiling out of habit, others frozen mid-thought, unsure how to respond. I walked down the aisle slowly, deliberately. I could feel it, the tension, the confusion, the anticipation. My mother stood at the front row clutching a tissue, not yet realizing what was happening. My father looked worried. He sensed something. Daniel reached out for my hand when I arrived. I let him take it. The officiant welcomed everyone. "We are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Claire Atwood and Daniel Scott." I let him speak for another minute. Then I raised my hand. "I'm sorry," I said, interrupting gently. "Before we go any further, I have something I'd like to share." The officiant looked confused but stepped aside. I took the microphone. My voice didn't shake. "I want to thank all of you for being here today," I began. "You traveled, you planned, you dressed up, and you came to support what you believed was a celebration of love." I paused and looked at Daniel. "Daniel," I said, "you once told me that honesty was the most important part of a relationship, that secrets were poison." I believed you. Then I turned to Rachel. "And Rachel, you told me that you wanted nothing more than to see me happy, that helping me plan this wedding was the most exciting thing you'd done in years." I smiled. "And I believed you too." I turned to the crowd. "What you all saw on your phones today is real. Every photo, every message, every word. No special effects, no exaggerations." I held up the microphone a little higher. "My fiancé and my sister have been in a relationship behind my back. It didn't just happen once. It happened repeatedly, quietly, while they smiled at me, while they toasted my future, while they helped me plan this day." Rachel stood now, face white, mouth open. "Claire, wait." "No," I said, firm but calm. "You don't get to speak here." Daniel stepped forward, hand raised. "Claire, please, let's just—" I turned to him. "You already had your moment, Daniel. Last night, in the guest house, with her." Gasps. More phones raised. Some guests began to cry. Others whispered prayers. I saw my mother shake her head and sit down slowly, face buried in her hands. I looked back to the crowd. I'm not going to marry Daniel today. I'm not going to pretend that what happened didn't matter. Because it does. I removed the ring from my finger and placed it in Daniel's hand. "I hope one day you both find what you're really looking for. But it will not be through me." I handed the microphone back to the officiant and stepped off the platform. People parted as I walked back down the aisle. Some reached out to touch my hand, others whispered my name. I kept walking. The lake shimmered in the background. The quartet had stopped playing. All I could hear were footsteps and soft breaths. Behind me, I heard Rachel crying. I didn't turn around because the moment was mine now, not theirs. After I walked out of the ceremony, I didn't look back. I could hear voices rising behind me. Confusion, outrage, someone sobbing, a few people calling my name. But I didn't stop. I stepped into the waiting car that Marissa had arranged and told the driver to take me anywhere that wasn't there. We drove in silence for nearly an hour. The moment I closed the door, I let out the breath I didn't realize I had been holding for weeks. The tension, the pretending, the weight of knowing and carrying the secret so carefully, it all collapsed. Not in tears, not in anger, just in a quiet release. I checked my phone only once that night. The video had already gone viral. One of the guests had screen recorded it and uploaded it with the caption, "Bride exposes fiancé and sister at the altar. She walked away with grace." By morning, it had over 2 million views. I didn't share it. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Because that moment wasn't about the internet. It wasn't about revenge porn or humiliation. It was about taking my power back. In front of everyone who mattered. In front of the people who thought I would just swallow betrayal and keep smiling through it. I didn't go home that night. Marissa booked me a room at a quiet boutique hotel in San Antonio. No one knew I was there, and that was exactly what I needed. I ordered room service, took the longest shower of my life, and sat on the balcony in silence with a blanket wrapped around me and a glass of wine in hand. The next morning, the messages started flooding in. Dozens, then hundreds. Some were from people I hadn't heard from in years. Others were complete strangers, women who saw the video and wrote to say thank you. Some shared their own stories of betrayal. One woman said she had been engaged to a man who had cheated with her best friend, but she never confronted them. She said, "Watching you gave me the closure I never had." And then came the messages from my family. My mother called 3 times, left one voicemail. She said, "Claire, I don't know what happened, but we need to talk." The message was filled with tension, denial, and something close to panic. I didn't respond. Then Rachel tried. First a text, then a voice note, then a series of messages that ranged from defensive to apologetic. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't think you'd find out. It wasn't serious. It's over. Each excuse stung in its own way. She never said she was sorry. Not really. Daniel sent me an email 2 days later. He wrote, "There's nothing I can say that will undo what I've done. You deserved more, and I failed you." That was the only sentence that didn't feel like spin. I didn't write back. In the days that followed, the fallout began. Daniel was asked to take an indefinite leave from the investment firm. One of his partners had attended the wedding and apparently didn't like being part of a public scandal. He stepped down quietly before they pushed him out. Rachel lost 2 sponsorships within a week. One was a wellness brand that valued family values. The other was a wedding vendor account she had been building a series with. Her social media went dark after that. I heard through an old mutual friend that she moved to Arizona to stay with a cousin and start fresh. My parents didn't talk to her for a while. My father called me and said, "I don't know what she was thinking. I just want you to know. What you did was brave." I didn't feel brave. I felt clean. I felt like someone who had finally put the truth where it belonged, out in the open, where it could no longer rot in the dark. I spent a lot of time alone in the weeks that followed. Walks by the lake, long drives, books I had put off for years. I stopped checking social media. I stayed off the news. I didn't want to relive it. I had already lived it once. The video kept spreading, news outlets called, talk shows reached out. I declined them all. This wasn't a story for entertainment, this was my life, and now I was reclaiming it. 3 months after the wedding that never was, I moved. Not out of shame, not to escape, but because I needed a new rhythm, one that didn't echo with memories I hadn't chosen. I sold the house Daniel and I shared, packed up the boxes I wanted, and donated the rest. I left Austin and settled in Asheville, North Carolina. The mountains called to me. There was something grounding about the landscape, ancient and steady. The kind of place where healing didn't feel like a performance, but a process. I opened a small dermatology studio just outside the city, with a focus on women's skincare and post-trauma recovery. My work shifted slowly into something more personal. I began offering wellness consults for women going through divorce, betrayal, and loss. Not because I had all the answers, but because I had walked through the fire and I understood the silence that followed. The studio became more than a clinic. It became a place where women could sit and quiet sip tea and talk without being judged. They came with dark circles under their eyes, with hearts still cracked. And I gave them facials, yes, but I also gave them space. Some cried, some didn't speak at all. That was okay. Their pain didn't need to be explained, it just needed to be seen. In the evenings, I spent time in my garden. I grew lavender rosemary and snapdragons. I adopted an old cat from a local shelter. His name was Arthur. He was blind in one eye and didn't care for loud noises. We made a perfect pair. I still thought about the wedding sometimes. Not the betrayal, not the collapse, but the moment I stood at the altar and chose myself. I replayed it in my mind not for validation but as a reminder that I didn't break, that I didn't crumble under the weight of betrayal, that I didn't shrink to make others comfortable. People still sent me letters, emails, messages. Many were from women who saw the video months later. They said things like, "You gave me the courage to leave," or "I wish I had said something when I had the chance." Some were from men too. One wrote, "My sister betrayed me in a way I couldn't explain. I watched your story and finally felt understood." That's the thing about betrayal. It isolates you. It makes you believe that what happened to you is so twisted, so personal, that no one could possibly understand. But they do. And when you share it, not out of spite, but out of clarity, you remind people that they are not alone, that there is life after heartbreak, and not just life, but beauty. I never spoke to Rachel again. There was no apology that would have made it right, no explanation that would have made sense. I forgave her not because she deserved it, but because I didn't want to carry her mistake into my future. Forgiveness for me meant freedom. Daniel tried reaching out once more, a typed letter this time. He said he had started therapy, that he was learning things about himself. He said he missed what we had, and that he would always care for me. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. It didn't make me angry. It just reminded me that I had made the right decision. Some people grow when they lose you, and that's not your responsibility. By the end of that year, I had rebuilt more than a home. I had rebuilt myself, not into someone harder or colder, but into someone quieter, stronger, someone who didn't need to be chosen to know her worth. I took solo trips, started writing again, woke up early just to sit on the porch with coffee and watch the light change. Peace is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives in moments, in silence, in breath. And I had learned to listen for it. It has now been over a year since the day I walked away from the altar. Sometimes people still ask me if I regret what I did, if I would take it back, if I would have handled it more privately, more gently, more quietly. The answer is no, because the truth when it's buried doesn't disappear. It festers, and I refuse to let that kind of rot take root in me. That day at the altar wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliating anyone or putting on a show. It was about breaking a cycle, a long silent pattern of pretending, tolerating, minimizing. I was raised in a family where we didn't talk about the things that made us uncomfortable. We forgave before we confronted. We smiled through discomfort and swallowed disappointment like pills. But not this time. This time, I chose the truth, and I let it speak for itself. Some people called me brave. Some called me cruel. But I wasn't trying to be either. I was just trying to be whole again. I've come to understand that betrayal doesn't just wound, it disorients. It makes you question your memory, your judgment, even your own worth. You replay conversations, moments, glances. You wonder how you missed it. You wonder if it was your fault. It wasn't. That's the lesson I needed to learn. And maybe the one you need to hear too. If someone lies to you, manipulates you, uses your trust as a tool for their convenience, that's not your failure. That's their reflection, their choice. And while we can't always control the pain people cause us, we do get to decide what we do with it. I chose to tell the truth. I chose to leave not because I was weak, but because I was finally strong enough not to settle for less than I deserved. People imagine that strength looks like shouting or slamming doors, but sometimes it looks like walking down an aisle in silence, standing at the edge of everything you built and saying no more. That's what I did. And I've never looked back. There's a quote I keep on the mirror in my studio. I don't know where I first read it, but it's stayed with me. Some women fear the fire. Others become it. I became it. Not to burn anyone down, but to light my own path forward. These days, my life is quieter. I spend more time with myself than I ever have. I've learned to love my own company, to listen to the voice inside me that I once ignored. I laugh more now. I cry more too, but in a way that feels honest. Not fragile. I allow myself space for all of it. And maybe that's the final lesson. You don't need to be perfect to begin again. You just need to be honest with yourself, with others, with what you truly need. I needed peace. I needed dignity. I needed to remind myself that I was still mine even after everything that had been taken. And now standing here on the other side of it all, I can say this with certainty. I am not what they did to me. I am what I chose to do next. And if you've ever been betrayed by a lover, a friend, or someone who shares your blood, please remember, you are not defined by their failure to love you. You are defined by how you carry yourself after. You are still worthy, still whole, still powerful beyond measure, even when the people you trusted most tried to convince you otherwise. So if you're standing at your own version of that altar, whether literal or emotional, don't be afraid to speak. Don't be afraid to walk away. Don't be afraid to choose yourself, because that's where the real story begins.